Here's part one of our conversation with Orleans great John Hall. He talks about his new solo album, Reclaiming My Time. In the first clip, we talk about working with Janis Joplin. Half Moon, well, first of all, how did you meet Janis? What was the circumstances?
Well, Johanna met Janiss first. Johanna was writing for the Village Voice and doing music reviews, and she wrote a positive, glowing review of Janis's Cosmic Blues album, which was right after she left Big Brother and the Holding Company, and a lot of the critics were down on that. They thought that she had abandoned her brothers in the commune, and she needed to, go back with them. And so Janis read this review that Johanna had written and said, "Can I do an interview with her?" And so the publicist, the same one that I believe was the same one that I was talking about before, set up an interview so that Janis and Johanna met at a Greek restaurant on the west side of Greenwich Village and in Manhattan, and they hit it off over lunch. And I was back in our apartment on the fourth floor walk up with no elevator, on the Lower East Side, and the door opens, in comes Johanna with Janis Joplin behind her. And I'm like, I wish I would have changed the cat box. But, we sat around and played, and sang together, and we sang Christmas versions of Christmas carols. I think it was November or early December. And I played her a couple songs that I had written. And she said, I like the music, but it sounds like a young guy wrote the lyrics. And I said, well, it's me. And she turned to Johanna and said, "You're a writer, you're a woman. Why don't you guys write a song together that I could sing?" And so we wrote Half Moon. And we drove to California from New York in an old station wagon my parents had given us to Janis's house in Mill Valley, or actually San Rafael, California, in Marin County, and played the song for her, and she loved it. And I taught it to her band, which at that time was the Full Tilt Boogie Band that was on the Pearl album. And we, Todd Rundgren was a musical director at the time, and he was there, trying to make the guys in the band laugh while I was saying, "Well, here's the lick. How's this? This guitar part goes." But they did a good job of it, and she sang it, out of it, as she always did, and thank God she did, because she recorded that song, and then it wasn't long before she OD'd, and of course the first posthumous record of anyone after they die goes to number one, and we probably was going to do that anyway, but it really allowed me and Johanna to learn how to write a song intentionally. It's like Johanna says, it's like bowling a strike your first time out, and then having to throw a lot of gutter balls before you figure out how to get the ball back into the strike zone again. And we were just blessed. Johanna calls her Saint Janis. She gave us this present of being songwriters for a living, and we got to be good at writing on demand and writing, sitting down with the intention of writing a song as opposed to waiting for lightning to strike.
Mm-hmm. What was your reaction when you found out she passed?
That moment in Coal Miner's Daughter where Patsy Cline dies, and I guess Sissy Spacek's character wakes up. Loretta Lynn wakes up, and can't believe it. I mean, you hear. I can't remember how I've heard, but it was like first thing in the morning. Like turn on the radio or something and hear it. And I didn't know Janis real well. I had played with her. I've opened the John Hall Band opened to her at a concert. And we saw each other at the management office and talked about stuff, but I was at a birthday party at her house, and in California, and it was a Bacchanal Fellini movie scene, but people were much closer to her than I was. I do also remember how I felt when Lowell George died, who I knew a lot better than I knew Janis. I had been on the road doing many concerts with Little Feat, with Lowell George, and I just, and it could be, how about somebody who is related to or bosom buddies with somebody who's not a star or not that big a star. I mean, there's some have been so many ODs, and unfortunately still are in this country. And how about Larry Hoppin from Orleans, or Wells Kelly Larry he took his own life, but with it's a similar kind of shock, and Wells Kelly was an OD, our original drummer, one of the three who started Orleans with me.
So Now More than Never reunites you and Johanna. Because I was just looking at by the way, I know about, Still the One and Dance With Me, but I'm asking people for quotes about Pearl, for instance, which turns 50 this year, along with a Zeppelin 4 and 2 Yes albums and Cat Stevens albums. So she's your ex-wife, right?
Johanna was my first wife, and we wrote a ton of songs together, including Still the One and Dance With Me and Half Moon and all these songs that we're kind of best known for. And we hadn't written together in 25 years before we wrote that song, Now More Than Ever. And, the divorce is long enough ago that the hatchets have been buried, and we're really good friends. So it's good that we can sit together and do what we did really well for many years.
Do you find that, I don't know, when I do live streams, John, sometimes my ex-wife will come up. We'll say, "Oh, she's your second wife. Where's your ex?" People ask kooky questions, and they're always surprised that my wife and my ex-wife are actually really good friends. They never talk about me. They just get along. I guess maybe there's more turmoil in those things and people too much under the bridge. I always find I'm going, why not? I'm friends with all my ex-girlfriends for the most part. To me, that's really normal. That's such a foreign thought for some people, don't you find?
Yeah, it is. And it's understandable. There can be, as a friend of mine says, the more love there is, the more grief there will be when you detach from that person. And grief sometimes comes out as anger, or vice versa. It's all the human condition, and that's what songwriters love. I remember reading that Joni Mitchell would hook up with a guy and then break up with him just to get a song. But I don't know if that really was what was happening, but she threw that remark off in some interview.
Okay, the phrase of the title goes to you. Were you interrupted? Is that what happened?
My life was interrupted. I made a decision to run for 3 offices. I ran for him as elected to county legislature, and then to the school board twice, and then to Congress. I was elected twice and then lost in 2010. I won 5 out of 6 elections, but it wasn't like I want a career in politics. It was more that there were some particular things each time that I ran for different offices. There were things I wanted.
Let me interrupt you. I don't think people were surprised when you did, considering your past.
Yeah, I had just put out a record in 2005, and Orleans, we had just put out a record as well. And I had to sit the guys down and say, I know we're planning this tour and we're already supporting this record, but I'm running for Congress. I didn't really want to do that, but I don't want to spend too much time explain why, but I ran again. Well, there was a 12-year incumbent in my district in upstate New York who I had voted for the war in Iraq and had voted for drilling for oil in the Arctic Wildlife Refuge. And I thought both of those things were really bad ideas. And I decided she needs to have a challenge. I didn't think I was going to win necessarily, but that I would make them spend money in that district on that race. And then I wound up winning and, surprised maybe myself, but, a lot of other people. And I did some good things, but interestingly enough, the most important thing probably I did had nothing. I mean, I've worked on environmental stuff, of course, but I was appointed to the Veterans Subcommittee on Disabilities, the Veterans Affairs Subcommittee on Disabilities payments. And I passed a road and was the prime author and chaired this subcommittee and passed a bill called the Veterans Claims Modernization Act of 2008, which was, it was passed unanimously. Every Republican and every Democrat in the House and the Senate voted yes, and President George W. Bush signed it into law and called it good government. And you could have blown me over with a feather because, there were a lot of things I didn't agree with President Bush on, but there is common ground. And that's the thing that I took away from it all, that there is, and that we should be trying to work as much as possible on the things that people do agree on, and then maybe we can get in the habit of agreeing a little bit.
Which is one of the themes as well on this album. Yeah, that's about working together and. But what was it? What was the title came from?
Well, when you're speaking on the floor of Congress and somebody says, "May I interrupt the gentleman to say something?" and I would yield. I say, "I yield to the gentleman from Iowa," or whatever state he is or she is from. When I want to continue my thought, I would say, "Reclaiming my time, Madam Speaker." Yeah. So the idea is, when I've been interrupted, taking my time back. And, none of us, I was thinking about the songs I might have written, the recordings I might have done, the music I might have made during those years, especially the 4 years in the house. And, but it's also reclaiming, for me and for everybody else, it's reclaiming the time that we lost to this pandemic. And we all have some grief that probably hasn't been dealt with because we've lost a good chunk of anybody's life, a year and 4 months, I think, at this, something like that. And moments like my granddaughter turned 6 and then turned 7, and I couldn't be there. I couldn't see her. I couldn't hug her, and so and people lost jobs, or in the case of musicians, like me and Orleans, everything was canceled. And it's worked in one way. It's worked out well because we've been able to do recording in isolation and videos in isolation, and thanks to technology and our learning how to do it, it's amazing what you can do without leaving your own home. But a lot of people didn't have that kind of job where they could work remotely, and so anyway, it's it's that too. It's reclaiming my time that was in Congress, and where I really had to put the guitar down, and just for 4 years, 5 counting the first campaign, it was 13-hour days, 7 days a week of just concentrating on that. If you do it conscientiously, that's what it is. And then so I, back on the saddle and in the saddle, and back at work musically.
Well, tell me about Now More Than Ever. Tell me about that one.
Well, Johanna had the idea for the title and the basic idea of the song, and wrote most of the lyrics to it, as was the case with Still the One and with Dance With Me, and I kind of midwifed it. I throw in lyrical ideas as well as musical ones, but it was really kind of a song that came out of not just personal feelings of our interpersonal societal feelings that we better start to pull together on the oars instead of rowing in different directions. And that theme pops up a couple times in the record on different songs. But then it turned into a little bit of a pandemic song as well, because weathering these stormy times, whether they be politically stormy times or whether the public health situation is particularly stormy as it has been for all of us this last year and a while. So, but the song really is written so you can read it just as a man singing to a woman, or vice versa, or you can read it as something bigger than that. So, it was just an easy. And it took us a couple months to write it, but was the concept developed itself, and we did most of the writing remotely. Yeah. There was one time she was being really careful, and I was being really careful. I drove up from where I was living in Dutchess County, New York, to where she's living in Saugerties, just to the east of Woodstock, and we sat once together at the table with her legal pad and me with my guitar, and started it, and then we finished it by Zoom or FaceTime or phone.
Reclaiming My Time is the brand new album from John Hall. There'll be links in the description of this video where you can pick up the album. Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. And we don't say this enough, buy a t-shirt, help support our channel. We really appreciate it when you basically wear our emblem proudly. There are many different t-shirt sizes, many different styles. You can pick them all up. Links in the description. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Music.